So it's interesting. So my name is Hilary. I am primarily specialized in the F&B side of things, but also curate and moderate quite a lot of content. So it's really lovely to talk about community. I mean, actually, there's quite a lot of overlap to the F&B side, and we'll touch a little bit on that too in the discussion. But it's interesting. I did before in the morning the data panel. Now we're kind of moving away from the spreadsheet and into the soft stuff. But I would argue, and let's see if you agree with me, that this is the stuff that really underpins the offers that we hear. So let's first get going by ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the discussion. So Olivia, let's start with you.
So I'm Olivia Harris. I'm Chief Executive at Dolphin Living. We're an affordable housing provider, affordable build to rent, operating in and around Westminster and London. So housing in Westminster and affordable don't normally go hand in hand. We've got about 840 homes in and around Westminster, providing Westminster's workers on modest incomes with a reasonable commute to their place of work. And within those buildings, we're obviously working to create community and work with our residents to make sure that they are at the centre of what we do.
And you have quite a big charity connection, correct?
So we are a charity.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot about that sort of stakeholder engagement as we go through it. Thank you for joining our panel so last minute.
Pleasure.
Give us a bit of background.
Lisa Cations. I'm the founder and managing director of the JCR Advisors. It's a premium advisory firm specializing in supporting and advising investors and landlords in selecting flexible space operators. What it means is that a lot of the office landlords are now actively managing their space, and they're involved in building communities and selecting co-working, flexible office, managed service operators to unlock revenue in their underutilized office space. So my background prior to that was I was heading up the sales for the UK for IWG, which is the largest co-working operator globally with the brands like Regus and Spaces. And then prior to that, Industrious, it's the largest US operator of the co-working space. So predominantly the co-working background. I'm also a founder and trustee of the charity called City of Opportunities, and we promote healthy buildings through funded research, so very much focused on the social impact, and I'll be excited to talk about this, how this all builds into community.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Catherine.
Hi everybody, lovely to see you all today. I'm Catherine Rose, I'm co-founder and managing director of Verve Life. We're a third-party operator managing build-to-rent, co-live and single-family housing assets across the UK on a white label basis for our clients. We don't own any of our own assets, we just manage on behalf of our clients. We get involved at super early stages. Predominantly at the moment, pre-apps on co-live is where I'm spending a lot of my time, making sure that we're educating local authorities on co-live with the largest co-live operator. But as I said, we manage single-family housing, co-live and build-to-rent across the UK. We help in the design phase as well to make sure that buildings are designed to be as efficient as they possibly can in terms of reducing net operating income and increasing rents. My mic's not working.
And we'll come to the building one as well. As you're getting your mic fixed, now you have two. Sorry, did you want to say something further? All right. I have a statement for each of you. You can either disagree, agree, or if you want to give any comment, to keep it short. Olivia, when doing community research, we assume too much what people want.
I agree with that.
Catherine, the build-to-rent model holds appeal mostly for urban contexts.
Disagree.
Lisa, smart buildings are the future of development, but only with the help of technology will we achieve net zero carbon ambitions. Agree. But there was some hesitation. All right. Before we go more into questions, I want to kind of get a sense of, community is a big word, same as, sustainability and all these sort of buzzwords we see going around. So from your perspective, in your business, when you think about community, what are some of the key words that come to mind? What does that mean to you? What does community mean to you? Let's start with you, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the office environment, and especially in the co-working, products as such. Community is the major product differentiator. So when you build a co-working business, you are selling memberships, but you're also fostering community. It's a short-term arrangement, so your average stay could be a day, up to a month or month-to-month basis, 3 months, 6 months term. So your major revenue stream is coming from engaging with community and making sure there is more of those members in your space. So therefore it is a crucial part of the success of a business if you have a thriving community with a very much engaged audience who will want to come to your office, co-working or flexible office, and stay for longer term, even though they have an option always to leave because of the short-term nature of the agreement.
Catherine?
So I went back to basics and I Googled the word community because I thought that would be a good starting point. So Google tells me it's a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common, or it is a social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality, and it is all to do with a sense of belonging. And the things that I've taken away from that, because we work across single-family housing, co-live and build-to-rent multifamily, and we manage small units, very small build-to-rent units from 50 all the way to co-live units of over 700. And our single-family housing schemes, it might just be 30-something units on a parcel of land from a housing developer. For me, it's the diversity, but I think it's that any size, and it is that sense of belonging. And I think working across those asset types with the different communities means different things to our different people. So whether you're a family is totally different from a PBSA student community versus a co-live community versus a hotel-style co-live community. So I think it's the diversity that I think is important, but it's ensuring that you are speaking to the groups of people, and I think you don't want the building full of all the same people, because that doesn't build a sense of community necessarily. I think that diversity is really important.
All right, so we got product differentiation, diversity. What about you, Olivia? How do you go about community?
So I think for us there's two aspects to the community. One, there is about the community that is within a property. So we've got properties that range from 14 to 100 homes. And so there's that sort of internal community. But there's also the value that our residents bring to the wider community. Because we're talking about median earners, we have a very high proportion of key workers. And we've done some research a few years ago about assessing the value of those key workers to the wider community. So the reason that we do what we do is both to benefit the individual and the small community, but also to benefit the wider community in and around Westminster, because we need these key or critical workers to support the lives that all of us live.
And I'd second that. It's the wider community we engage with, so it's non-members being invited into the building, it's working with local businesses, it's working with the local community. So yeah, the community is not just the people within the building.
Not the micro, it's the macro.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got product differentiation, diversity, internal and external community building. And we said we're moving away from the spreadsheet, but in a way this needs to support the spreadsheet and the numbers. So what are some of the metrics that you use to measure success in your community building initiatives? I'm looking at.
To cover that. So
yeah.
So again, in the office environment, I just want to say there is also different types of communities, because you have smaller entrepreneurs, sort of individual, a small, medium type of businesses, individual entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. So these people are actively engaged in the community building, because there is a very lonely place if you work on your own in this sort of cubicle. So you are absolutely sort of valuing the community, and also from this spreadsheet perspective, this is incredibly important to have the strong sense of community, because those tenants who pay rents, and most probably there's going to be a membership fees that you can have recurring revenue, so it's absolutely crucial. Then another element of this sort of community building is when you have larger occupiers, like if there's a bigger company occupying your space, and we're talking about maybe 20 desks, those, for them, the community, external community is less important, and there's a research that supports that the larger the company is, the less of the sort of external engagement they're seeking for, and it all becomes sort of internal community, and how those companies are sort of fostering their internal sense of belonging associated with the company as such. So that's where there is a differentiation in how you engage with those companies, where you can curate the experience in your co-working center through bespoke programs. For example, you can bring a leadership speaker to engage in some sort of leadership talk with a specific set of clients, as opposed to everyone is welcome, because they might not engage as such. So you need to be more bespoke in your community building approach in order to see the impact on your P&L and on your occupancy that translates into a spreadsheet.
And Catherine, going over to you as a third-party operator, how do you go about sort of building community, and how do you measure its success?
So it's really tricky. So it's the rate of return, isn't it? And that spreadsheet is where you've got an events budget. How do you spend that money? You've got your health and safety, your building, your compliance. You've got to manage that asset, but also you want that resident retention. You want that happy community. In terms of the metrics we use, so we do resident surveys, as you'd expect. So move-in surveys, post-maintenance surveys, regular surveys, not too often. Clearly, nobody wants to be surveyed to death. But that data is valuable, because what else have you got to go on? We use home views. I'm not sure if there's anybody from Home Views here today, but we use the home views for reviews and ratings. Our on-site team help us measure success. Resident retention, renewals, that helps. The general feeling within the building, it's that gut, isn't it? Not everything should be data-driven, not everything's a spreadsheet. You can walk into a building and you can tell whether it's a happy place where people genuinely get on and there is a community. I would say we are British at the end of the day. Not all of our residents are British in the building, but not everybody wants community rammed down their neck. So I think having that diversity of events, and we work really closely in some of our larger schemes where we've got resident ambassadors, and they're an extension almost of our on-site team, and they're the voice of our residents, so we know actually what events people want. So if I take a microclimate Wembley, for instance, where we've got a number of schemes under management, BTR, multifamily and co-live, there's quite a big Chinese demographics there. We started doing more Chinese-driven events, and actually the feedback was they don't want that in Wembley. They want to go to Chinatown, or they want to go somewhere else. They don't want it on their home ground. So we took that on board. You think you're doing the right thing, but you really got to listen to the voice.
But the changing demographic and cultural
you can
differences.
Negatively ram community in the wrong way, and that can have a really negative impact if you don't get it right.
And Olivia, tell me a little bit more about resident retention within your schemes, and how you can work with your community internally and externally, and how do you measure what success looks like for you?
So it's an interesting one. So we're partly regulated, because part of what we do is a regulated provider. So we have to do carry out and measure what are called tenant satisfaction measures, as imposed by the regulator of social housing, and we also have sort of your much more standard NPS score as well. But normally you would say, well, actually a measure of success is tenancy length. Yeah, if I've got long tenancy lengths, it means people are staying. For us, and a long tenancy length is good because it means you've got less void periods, and that is good for your bottom line. But for us as a charity, in a way, people moving on is a good thing, because it means that our properties have done what they need to do. They've given people the support that they need while they needed to benefit from a reduced rent, and they've used that, and potentially they've bought a home, or they've, and it might be that they've managed to stay in London for that period a bit longer, build up their career a bit more, and now have moved somewhere else. So whilst tenancy length is a really good indicator, you have to think really what a long tenancy means, and sometimes short tenancies are also really good as well.
Yeah.
Can I just echo this also in the co-working world? It is a good thing because you can always sort of increase the rent. So it's almost like when you stay for a long period of time, it's much harder discussion in terms of upping the rent to a certain level, because the people sort of most probably will be quite upset with that. Whereas if you recycle your tenant base, you actually can maximize the returns. But also, as Olivia was saying, some other companies, they might either downsize or upsize, so you might not be the right fit for them anymore. So it is a natural almost movement.
You're an incubator,
Exactly, you're an incubator. You want to sort of create a home for them to thrive, but then it doesn't, having a long-term tenant is not always a good thing, if it makes sense.
And I'd echo that, especially in our co-live schemes in Wembley. We've our general manager there calls them her alumni. They've all made such good friends together. They've moved into the wider Wembley Park and moved out of co-live studios into 3-bedroom apartments and flat sharing together. So that for us is really positive. We've lost some amazing tenants, but they've actually made such good friendship groups. They form that mini community they want to move in together.
It's kind of when you're championing your employees to go and take that next promotion, whoever it might be with, but that's where they started from. I kind of see it in the very same way.
And that helps you attract new
Exactly.
people.
Because that's a success story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's quite I mean, again, you can't very much put a metric on that. It's just,
No.
it's a story, it's a narrative.
And it's bad for our bottom line when people move because we have a void and you know, that affects our income. But it's good because for us as a charity, we're delivering what we're supposed to deliver.
And in terms of how you bring community together, talk to me through some of the things that you, I mean, Catherine, you already touched on events. If you can talk a little bit more about what events can be quite broad. Sometimes it can be maybe over-programmed. So how do you bring community together? What are some of the tactics and strategies you use?
So it's capturing data, so understanding the people who've moved into the building, what their interests are. It's capturing that data without surveying, so when you're on a viewing or when there's something going on, the on-site teams, if there is an on-site team, pick up that Joe in flat 36 really loves football, or Sophie's got a dog and is pet mad. And I think it's those events which organically grow, which don't necessarily need to be expensive, and again that you can just embed into the wider community, that are hugely successful. So it might be a running club, we might provide branded water bottles, you know, it's those low impact but high positive value events that I think are really important. And it's so different across our entire portfolio because we have got single family housing as well. So it might be that we post sunflower seeds out and do a, you know, best dressed at balcony, or who's going to grow the tallest sunflower, or, you know, they bring the community together as well, but also it brings the families together on those single family housing. So it's a whole diverse range of events. I do think that the value of events is very valuable, resident retention, it's understanding the value of it, but I do think that, and I'm probably repeating myself slightly, our staff are there for the safety of the building. They are there for health and safety, and I sometimes think that the community and events building, whilst it's really important, in today's world is a bit of a distraction, and actually it doesn't matter if a croissant isn't there on a Wednesday morning, it matters whether your lift has passed its health and safety. For me, there's a very fine line between how much time we should be spending as property managers on events and community building. If you went back 10, 15 years, we weren't running these sorts of events. I know they've got value, I know they're important, but for me and our on-site teams, it's a dedicated central role that we employ, where the on-site team need to be running that building. It's a bit like an air hostess. They're not there just with the drinks trolley, they are there for your safety.
Well, I want to bring the digital element into this discussion, because in our world, the tenant experience apps are one of the ways to build community and engage with the community. So, and then you're also sharing a lot of information. So if you're a landlord, and you know, we sometimes, you know, operators of the co-working space, they only take maybe 1 or 2 floors, but then you have multi-tenanted building, and a lot of the landlords are starting to embed the tenant engagement apps, where there is almost like information board spread to the entire population, occupying the entire building, to demonstrate there are events, there are surprise and delight moments. We talked about the sort of food and beverage element. So there's a very, very high increase in spend on the F&B and the sort of food stalls, markets, kind of local markets, bringing different foods into the building so that people can start getting engaged, having this sort of meal together. And especially, you know, a lot of co-working occupiers, they're voting with their feet coming to the office. So there's a big element of bringing people into the office as such. So I know in the living sector, it's sort of, they're living there and it's absolutely not a kind of an issue. But for the office asset managers or landlords, it is a big problem when the buildings are just empty and people are not coming in. So you want to make sure that there's community building is centered around sort of collaboration, food and beverage, shared meals, surprise and delight moments where you can bring just sort of an ice cream parlor and then just give this ice cream for free for everyone passes by. So, but this creates this experience that is programmed, and another big element is around the hospitality, so training. And I have this example where my previous employer set up this whole business vertical, helping the landlords like Nuveen to train their security staff and their welcome team or receptionist team to even smile and adopt the hospitality training in the office environment, because that was just not the case. And the whole kind of programmed experience through the entrance, welcoming, sense of belonging, sense of kind of being looked after, like Catherine was saying about sort of knowing your customer, knowing whether someone is a pet lover or, you know, tennis fan or something, or football fan, just kind of making it personal, but also creating it, being intentional is really where the trick is.
And have a follow-up question on that, but first, Olivia, to you. Are you also events-driven in your community building? Is that where community comes together?
Not in the same way. I think partly because we're a charity, so for us, our engagement is more about reaching out to our tenants. Let me give an example. Last year, as part of our annual sort of strategy review, all of our board members and all of my management team went and spent an hour with a resident in their home, because I think it goes back to your first question that you said to me, do we make assumptions about what people know? And the answer is yes. So we actually went out, and it needs to come from the top of the organisation, sat in people's homes, listened to what was important to them, listened to what was important to them about place, about their home, about why being a Dolphin tenant was important, about what they'd done before they were a Dolphin tenant, or a Dolphin resident, so that we hear it from them. Because otherwise, yes, you make assumptions. So that engagement is much more about those face-to-face meetings. And our tenants don't have a choice, or they have less choice than if they were market rent tenants. Mm-hmm. So they can't vote with their feet and go somewhere else or move on. And actually, they still deserve, a safe home that meets their needs and given, a level of service that is right for them. So we spend a lot of time trying to find out what that means to them, and that hence our sort of strategy day last year. And we then spent time embedding that throughout the whole team within the organisation. So it's not just our customer service colleagues who go out and meet residents and hear about residents, understand what we're trying to do for residents. We make sure that our finance team know that as well, and that the people that are managing our buildings know that as well, because repairs and asset management have a huge impact on your residents. So you have to feed it throughout the organisation and make sure people don't have those assumptions up front.
And it would be interesting to know if there's anything surprising that came out of those interviews with your residents or tenants, as you call them. Because I guess one of the things that was mentioned earlier today was this, isolation and loneliness issue that the hybrid work maybe creates at times, or maybe does it affect your community as well? So is there anything interesting that came out of, or surprising that came out of these interviews that you had to then go and think about and think, oh wow?
I think quite a lot of our residents didn't actually realise we were a charity and why we were offering these discounted market rents. So actually that creates, hopefully, we're trying to make sure we communicate that better, just to make that part of our relationship with our residents, and them understanding that, as a landlord, that impacts on our approach to them. So for example, you might find that if residents are behind with their rent, they stop reporting repairs and they become more difficult to engage with. But hopefully them knowing that actually we're there to help them to support their tenancies, because we are there to support working Londoners, will hopefully bring a different approach from our residents. Yeah, so the main surprise was they didn't really understand what was behind what we do as an organisation and why we do it.
And how it's structured and why it's structured that way. Interesting. Lisa, I want to go back to, you mentioned apps, and a question to you, Catherine, on that. How much of technology do you use in community engagement? Is that a part that you're looking at, or it's much more sort of a person-to-person interaction?
It is a huge amount, actually. A lot of our younger residents don't like to pick up the phone and speak to people, so it's all done through the app. So our app is powered by Spike Global, is all white labelled. We can bespoke it for all of our clients, but it gets engaged at the super early stage. So when you're doing your referencing, it's all done through the app, and then when you move in and you get past that, the app opens up. But that's where we post. We can do push notifications for events. We do push notifications to say it's tested Tuesday, the fire alarm's been tested, to say the lift's out of action, croissants on a Wednesday, whatever it might be. So our engagement through our app is huge. It's also where we've got our wider community benefits. So it talks about where the local doctor's surgery is, it talks about where the local school is, the buses, and it also talks about whether it's Wine Wednesday or pizza, whatever it might be, in the local restaurant around the corner. So our apps are used hugely across our entire portfolio. Tailored very differently, as I keep saying, for single family housing. It might be that we've got childminder advertised on there, or discounted swimming lessons versus Wine Wednesday. So yeah, a huge range really through the app.
And what about you, Olivia?
Yes, we are just rolling out a new app for our residents called Residently, which will start similar thing.
Very similar, yeah.
Basically, it starts the tenant journey with the sign up.
So app based in terms of
but actually, we have a very varied range of ages of residents. So we've got some retirees, as well as a lot of people in their sort of 20s and 30s. So for us, actually, that face-to-face contact is really important. Their ability to pick up the phone is still really important. And even if you're on an app or a phone, if you are communicating with someone that you have met, it fosters better communication. So we do sort of prioritise, not all the time face-to-face communication, but making sure that we as a team are visible. So going out and visiting our properties, doing estate walkarounds, doing at least one annual event where residents can come and meet us if they choose to do that.
Yeah.
Because
you need to offer it, don't you? I think that face-to-face, and it's that gut feeling you build that rapport. And we can still put an AST tenancy agreement in the post if we need to. You don't have to do it all through the app. If we need to do that, we absolutely do. I totally agree.
And for some people, English might not be their first language, so actually, you need to go out and you need to meet with them, and you need to make sure that they actually genuinely understand everything that you're telling them before they sign a tenancy agreement. So face-to-face is really important, but the point is that you bespoke what you do according to the needs of your residents, and in order to do that, you need to understand your residents.
The clock keeps flipping, but I think we have a couple of minutes left. Is there any questions from our wide audience? Yeah. Oh, George, thank you.
I'm going to jump in just before George and ask a quick question. Please go ahead, give George the microphone, and then I don't have to walk over there. To me, the sense of community goes to the heart of the social contract that exists across all of the living asset classes. And I'd be interested if you've got any sort of anecdotes that you can relay concerning your own interactions with the sort of public realm, in terms of whether that's planners or whether that's local government, in how being able to demonstrate community or the strength of your community, what impact, positive or negative, that has had.
Can I maybe just start?
Yeah, go for it.
It's a very quick answer, because I guess I'm speaking more on behalf of the working kind of work sector or office sector, but living is clearly Catherine and Olivia's expertise. But what I've seen so far is that in any new development, the government, the local authorities are imposing the provision of the affordable workspace. So now every scheme that you want to apply for planning permission has to have a affordable space, whether it's through co-working, through sort of some flexible offices. It doesn't really matter much in terms of sort of the setup, but it has to bring the community of local residents together and provide this space for people, like a third space for them to work outside of their home. So I do think that is a positive interaction, and it's a good thing that the local authorities are imposing that. Now, then the landlords need to start to make decisions and understand better how they factor it in their spreadsheet and how they either operate or outsource, etc. But it is at the heart of every sort of new scheme that you would want, whether in London or in the regional cities.
I would say that for us it comes more through in the planning and design stage about the impact of the new building that we are bringing to a particular location. Less so when we're operating, but that is probably because the size of most of our buildings mean we don't have public space within them. We do have some homes that we buy from other developers where there is public realm within the development, but that you have to have very large scale buildings for that. So for us it's mainly in the planning and design and the impact of our building on the sort of the visuals of the local community from that design.
I think our clients at the moment are struggling on the co-live side from an educational piece. So we've got quite a few number of challenges in terms of community. So is it affordable? Why would we want co-live? What are we doing about affordable? Is it an off-site provision? Is it an on-site provision? That then affects affordability. What are we doing with the wider community? Is it a gated community? What are we going to do about non-residents being able to have access perhaps to co-workspace? I think that they're a little confused about where co-live sits. I think mainly, especially in the regions, they haven't got their head around it. And I still think we're learning about build to rent, so let alone co-live. Single family housing for us is not a planning issue. It's not the house builders have nailed that. It doesn't really come up at all. For me at the moment, I've probably sat in a number of pre-apps over the last few weeks where it's really hard to explain the benefit, all-inclusive rents, where are your students, what are you doing about your graduate retention rate, how are you going to keep people living and working in your city? That is a really hard piece for us at the moment, and my clients specifically.
George?
Yeah, question for Catherine. In a lot of the bigger co-living schemes, and to some extent build to rent during the lease-up phase, they're actually devoting some of their inventory to hotel stays, 2, 3, 4 nights. Operationally, what are the challenges of keeping your core residential community happy along with these other guests? And do you include the transient people in any of the community building stuff, the events and so on?
Yeah, so across our schemes, we've got a number of hotel consented co-live schemes, which means we have to have minimum stays. All of our events are open to non-residents and residents alike. We do have challenges in terms of antisocial behaviour, more from the shorter stay guests. They might be there on a hen do or whatever, so there's an antisocial behaviour issue. We do tend to, where possible, group the short stays on one floor. From an operational perspective, it means if we're doing linen changes, housekeeping, looking after more of a service department style, it's far easier to have that linen cupboard. Your cleaner's doing everything on one floor rather than pepper potting. Again, it just helps with the check-in, check-outs if we've got key issues. We do need 24/7 staff, they're more demanding at times, not necessarily more demanding than some of our longer stays. There is a bit of an amenity face-off sometimes, for want of a better phrase, in terms of how the amenity space is being used, whether the swimming pool's being used appropriately by some of our short stay guests. That said, some of our long stay guests don't behave at the best at all times. So each of the schemes has got its different operational challenges. And I think where we've got more short stay guests, we're very much more hotel style concierge. So it's where's the taxis, where can I go for dinner, what's happening in the local area, where do I get to the underground station. They have to work very hard to wear different hats from an operational perspective.
Thank you so much. I got through about half of my questions, but we're out of time. So big round of applause to my panel.